Hi everyone and welcome to Hostile Territory. What I'm going to do in this video is tell you a story from my previous company and from a workplace. It is a sad story. It is a good example of what happens to good people and good workers within a toxic workplace. So stay tuned.
Hostile Territory.
Now, before I start, I must mention two things. I am very bad at storytelling, and the other thing is I hope you don't mind the bad English and the lapses here and there and the weird expressions that I sometimes use. I'm not a native speaker, so again, I hope you don't mind. This story starts 4 or 5 years after I started working within the company. What we had is a big problem with a shortage of qualified workers within the branch office. The business grew, it quadrupled essentially, and we desperately needed workers that knew how to work, qualified workers. The head management gave my boss, free pass to do whatever he wanted, and what he decided to do is to hire his acquaintances. And he hired a guy which came to work, but he was essentially business-wise useless. He was a good guy and everything else, but his main point was to get the paycheck and get out of there as soon as possible, which was okay, but it didn't help with the work. Then came the mistress who wanted to, the boss's mistress who wanted to employ her brother. Then came the coworker who wanted to employ his son and succeeded in doing so later down the line. But my point here is that from 14 to 2021, we had a big problem with workers. I think 10 people changed that position. This was not fishy to the management, but I don't know why. Anyway, 10 people changed, and all of this wasn't a solution for the problem. Either they didn't like the job, they didn't like the human relations within the company, nobody liked the boss-mistress relations, Nobody liked to be humiliated, nobody liked to be a busboy and everything else. All in all, 10 people changed that position. Most of the workload fell into my lap. But I needed the job and I needed the money, and that's how things went in that period. Because of that, I had some serious health issues in 2021. I got a minor stroke, and only thanks to God and the people in the hospital, I am here where I am, and I am immensely thankful and grateful for that. I ended up in a hospital. I was there for a month and a half. All in all, I was away from work for, let's say, about 2 months before I totally recuperated. When I came back to the company, I saw a new person working there. And I wasn't surprised, it was just another person that they hired. They probably knew each other, and that was that. But when I started to sort of, kind conversation, it was a custom, to not be weird with someone new working in the company. I saw that A, they didn't know her, B, that she got the job through sort of regular channels. She applied, I think, on the website or something like that, and got work through the head management, not the branch office. And I saw that she was, sort of an outsider of that whole circle that my coworkers made. On this part, I will be very honest with you. This woman was a superman. The effort she put into work, the effort she put into learning, the effort she took to get that job, it was impossible, and it was not faking. It was not like, give me the job and I'm gonna stop right after that. She was just like that, If you give her a task, she will finish it. If you ask her something to do, be certain it's gonna be done. If you ask her to learn something in order to, for her to get more work, which is not in her interest, she would learn it in a matter of minutes, And it was, I just saw it and I was amazed. The company finally found a worker. It was what we needed. It was the person who was gonna do the job that was intended. From that point on, I will tell you, and this is the point of this video, how good workers that put lots of effort into work and do their work properly finish in a toxic and hostile workplace. What I first noticed when the woman started to excel in her work is the jealousy of the boss's mistress. I think she saw her as a competition, and immediately she started talking to the boss to let go of her, to get rid of her. The second thing I noticed is that people who slack and people who are manipulative and everything else don't like too much work going around them. If there's too much work done, you're starting to set the bar high, and they're going to have to do more work, and their slackery and their laziness is going to come into focus. My coworkers were immensely afraid of this. The other thing was that I noticed that they started humiliating her and started treating her like, someone like a servant, essentially. I'll make an example. A few times, because my coworkers made shifts how they liked, so if one needed a free day, they would change shifts between each other. One day I had to work with the boss's mistress and the woman I mentioned. I didn't intervene only because women were in question, and if I started, asking or doing something, it would be probably seen the wrong way. The mistress was acting towards that woman just like a servant, and that woman was much more intelligent, much better worker than the mistress was. But she treated her, go get me this, go get me that. I'll tell you how things go in life. I'll tell you how things go like this, and it was it was really bad, and I saw that affected that woman. And I saw where all of this was going. That was one thing I saw. The other thing was that they limited the knowledge they gave her, opposed to the other people who came. My coworkers gave all the company secrets regarding the programs, how we did crucial things. If someone were to steal that and to get a knowledge of that, we would be in serious trouble. They gave it all for free, because they were acquainted to those people, and they knew them. And mind you, most of those people ended up working in other companies. So they took the knowledge from the company we worked in and probably gave it to other companies. But that didn't matter. What mattered is that they restricted knowledge to someone who wants to work, and they, just treated her like a servant. You're going to do this, get the papers, do that, give me the stamp, give me the pencil, go get me some coffee, go get me a drink, or something like that. And it was pathetic. It was pathetic. And, I saw what kind of people I'm working with. It was gross. Of course, the end result was when her contract was expiring, because of the nagging of the mistress, told the head management, it's not so good, she's not so good, and she got laid off, man. And that's the whole sad story. It is sad because a good worker and someone that put a lot of effort into work lost the job essentially for nothing, because of the jealousy of a mistress in a workplace, because of being a threat to other people that slack and don't do their work properly, and because essentially if she were to be left to work in the company, she would perhaps be a nuisance for the plans they had. After that, what happened is, conveniently, after 15 or 20 days, the co-worker's son came to work there. He was also lazy, not interested. I think his father indoctrinated him in how to do work, okay, and he was practically useless for the company. But that was somewhat like the last year or so while I was there in the company. I tried it slacking also, but that didn't work out well. I mentioned that in my previous video. So now, by that time, I left the company. The point of this story, I must emphasize this again. First, never invest your time in a toxic and hostile workplace, and I've talked about this before. But this story should help in realizing this in a better way, in a more simplified way. Always, before starting to work, observe the people, observe how they do the job, observe the job itself, observe the head management, observe anything you can to get a good picture of what you're up against. Again, if you're working in a good company, among good people, good honest workers, and people who want to do the job, give 100%, it will all pay off in the long run, probably. And you'll be helping your co-workers and being a good person, which is important at the end of the day. But if you work in a toxic workplace, all you'll end up is like the woman I mentioned, just used and thrown away. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your time. I hope this story helps you in a toxic and hostile workplace. If you have the time, watch our other videos where you can see how to manage in a toxic and hostile workplace, make your life easier, and perhaps get through the whole ordeal much easier. Thank you for your time. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next video.